Bumble took a little bit of a hit after their earnings last week, and it hit my second entry target, my second in theory final entry target, which was $4.23, I believe. My first entry was $5.23. Um,
Had you put
so
a
you,
limit order by order for that amount, or
so the way I like to do it is I just set a price alert, so I'm notified whenever it
okay,
hits, whenever a stock hits a certain price, and then I have to like make the final call,
gotcha.
because you never know why a stock is going down or up, and I just like to, audit everything before I make a purchase, because
Yeah, that's a good way
sometimes I'll
to do
change
it.
my mind, but most of the time, I follow through with whatever I kind of intended.
Yeah,
So you could see on Savvy, where it has like my little face with the line, that's my average price,
yeah,
which is $4.68. And then where I bought is like kind of at the bottom of this first dip. And then it continued to kind of go down throughout the last week.
yeah.
And, I was all excited buying into Bumble, lowering my average price target. And I thought you were going to come in with me. And then you didn't take advantage. You didn't buy. What
Yes.
happened?
Okay. So when we were live going over the earnings um, details last week on Wednesday during the episode,
Yeah.
there was the one surprise for me, which was the Q4 guide was down 17% compared to a year ago. And all the quarters have been down roughly 10%. So it was kind of like surprising as to why, if it was down 10%, I would have been like, okay, that's in line with, the typical sort of move that they've been doing. Since it was down 17%, that got me to pause. I contacted investor relations. I'm like, hey, I want to I want some answers to some questions I have. Got a call with Kevin, their CFO,
Oh, that's
which
cool.
I was very appreciative that they set that up. And I got a bunch of my questions answered, and I'll sort of go over all the details, and I'll tell you what I plan on doing after I go over all the details. So there is so much to love with Bumble. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things that I don't like, and then I'll tell you what my plan is. So the first thing is that they are a cash-rich company that's generating cash every quarter. That's a pretty big deal because they're not a company that's about to go bankrupt. That's just like off the table as far as I'm concerned. At least my view is that this is not a company that's on the verge of bankruptcy or is going to close down. Interestingly, companies that don't have profit yet are far more likely to, to go bankrupt than Bumble is. So they increased their cash from last quarter from 261 million to 307 million. So that's a cash increase of roughly $56 million. So their cash add very much in line with what I was hoping, or, like that they would add another $50 million of cash. They sure did. That was fantastic. In As part of their earnings call, they also announced that in Q4, so in this quarter, this has not yet been released, but they did announce it, that they are going to buy out this tax receivable agreement or TRA agreement that they've had with some of their shareholders that is essentially debt. And they carry it as debt on their books, a liability of roughly 400 million that has been on their books, and they're going to buy out that TRA tax receivable agreement for a one-time payment of 186 million. So that's going to decrease their cash pretty substantially, but I think it's a very good thing. They're still generating plenty of cash, so they're, them depleting their cash a little bit to get rid of this $400 million of debt is a pretty big deal, and they get rid of $400 million of debt for 186 million. So that's a great freaking use of their cash, and it actually increases their cash flow in the coming quarters, and they should be able to generate more cash. Obviously, it
Right.
reduces their initial cash from 307 million. If you reduce it by 186 million, that it's going to be down to 120 million ish, and then from there it'll be whatever they added in cash for Q4.
And
So
does this mean that their earnings for this following quarter are also going to not be great in regards to like EPS. It's going to be like kind of wildly off from estimates because
Well,
I feel
you
like
know
normally
what's
that happens
interesting
with these
is
tax payments.
it's not a tax payment, so this is a reduction of debt. So if anything, and I asked Kevin this, and I think he hadn't thought about it enough to give me a correct answer, but because he like uh, m- what my expectation would be is that this would have actually 200 and something in the neighborhood of 210 $220 million positive impact on one-time earnings, not really business related, but it's just this. You got rid of $400 million of liability for 186 million, so there's roughly a $210 million positive impact to your balance sheet. um, I think that's what it would do. Now, when I asked him that, he actually said, I don't think so, but he also like kind of caveated it with that he may have not thought about it enough. So um, uh, I don't think it's going to be a negative one-time impact. If anything, it would be a positive one-time impact, or that would be my read. I'm not an accountant, so
Right.
take that with a
Yeah. I
grain of
know it's
salt.
sometimes, yeah, murky.
um, now, I'm like reading through my notes. One of the one of the other things that I love about this, so forget the cash thing. One of the other things that I love about the company is that on the call, Whitney talked about their new AI initiatives and AI product line that will be a standalone product. So there's a possibility that uh, Bumble's AI product, which this is a company that basically has an incredible amount of domain knowledge about what women want in particular. Obviously, also what men want, but I feel like a lot of sort of people have been focused on the men's side of things. Bumble is very much focused on the women's side of things. um, Using that domain knowledge, they do plan on releasing an AI product that is going to do at least dating, but possibly other things as well. Now, she's not sort of revealing a lot of details on that, but one of the things that I think was mentioned in the earnings call was potentially doing group events or like activities that women might want to plan together or do together. So this other AI based product that could be partially dating, partially other things, could actually have a pretty substantial new revenue opportunity that might be additive to Bumble's future. So you know, let me pause there and say those are all the things that I love about the company. What are your thoughts on the stuff that I've said and
I
what
agree. I
you
mean, that's why I bought in, right? Because initially, when we were talking about Bumble for the last 4 months, I've kind of been on the sidelines, and the vision and all the pros have clicked with
okay?
me,
Yeah.
right?
So I
So,
mean, I
like,
like Whitney too. I mean, the fact that the founders there
yep,
has recognized that the issues with the company. One of the things that she's recognized, and this goes to the things that I don't like or almost hate, the Q4 revenue decline or expectation down to 216 to 224 million. This is what they guided to. Is a 17% annual decline compared to like 10% last quarter. And this was one of my things with Kevin. I was like, why is there such a huge discrepancy? And this has to do with what Whitney had talked about from early on, when she came back on I think it was, maybe April or May earnings call, where she talked about how they're going to be very much focused on women's security. They need to make women feel safe. Therefore, they're going to focus on sort of quality members. There's going to be this push towards quality on Bumble. And that push started mid quarter because they had to update their product. They didn't immediately do it. They had to, the August update in the Bumble product is what really started that push. And therefore, Q3 was only half of Q3 was impacted by this push for security and quality member. Um, but all of Q4 is going to be impacted by it, which basically means the rate of new members being added to the system, as well as getting rid of low quality members from existing, paying members or whatever. The combination of those two things is going to be significantly greater in Q4 than it has been historically. So that is their explanation, their official explanation as to why Q4 revenue is declining substantially more than like Q3, for example.
Do you happen to
I,
get any hard numbers on that? Because that was my big question when we spoke last week, is like they in theory should know how many people they took off the platform versus people that left organically.
no, there's no hard numbers that were shared. Somebody else asked that on the earnings call, and they did not give a detailed answer there. But basically saying that this impact, but it should stabilize, and going forward, they expect to have taken the brunt of the hit in Q4. Um, so I don't love that. I thought that it was already done. That was definitely a surprise, and that was the thing that has basically caused me to pause. Like if all else equal, and the expectation for Q4 was also in the $245 million revenue range, I would have been loading up on Bumble heavily if the price had gone down 25%. But I also think the price wouldn't have gone down 25% if that was the case. Um, so that's what I don't love. Um, but even with the decline in 17% revenue, by the way, they still expect to be profitable. EBITDA profitability 61 to 65 million. So they're still going to add cash as part of their business operations. The net cash is obviously going to go down because of the TRA purchase. Um, but yeah, so and then the last thing I don't love about where they're at is that, of course, they have this $600 million of debt, long-term debt on their books, which they need to continue to make payments towards. They're going to pause like substantial payments. It's not due, so it's not like they're in this sort of backed into a corner or anything like that. But um, and the rate of which they're generating profits right now, at least, and generating cash, it's plenty for them to have no worries from the $600 million. But that is a negative that's on their balance sheet. That's just like the 400 million was a negative that was on their balance sheet. Um, so those are the aspects that I don't love about it. So that's what has caused me to pause, and of course the market's reaction going down. 20, 25%, maybe a little bit more actually, uh, is making it more tempting. So interestingly, as we get close to year end, and here's where I'm going to talk about what I plan on doing, and I haven't definitively made the decision, um, but there is this opportunity because I've had so much gains throughout the year on other stock sales that I could sell some of my higher priced Bumble. I don't want to reduce my Bumble position,
Yeah, I
but
I was going to talk about tax loss harvesting in a future
yeah.
episode, but yeah, keep
Okay, yeah,
going.
this is actually a good time to talk about it because it's November and you kind of need to start planning these things out. But basically, I've bought shares as expensive as $7 and some change. So if I sold some of those shares, I could be taking roughly a $3 per share loss
Loss
against other gains, and I could technically buy back those shares 30 days
after
after.
30 days. Yep.
Right. Or I could do the reverse, meaning I could buy the shares first and then sell them 30 days from now. We still have time because 30 days from now will be like December, like mid-December. So both of those are possibility. I might sell shares
Right.
and then buy 30 days later, or buy more shares and then sell them 30 days from now. um,
And if I remember correctly, if you did want to sell shares first, you have to wait until it's been 30 days since your last purchase.
that you might be correct about that. So I might have to buy first before I
Yeah.
can sell them
Not
30 days
financial
later.
advice.
No, yeah, but no, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I
Yeah.
might have not been able to do the reverse.
Yeah.
So,
I believe it goes both ways.
okay. And I might have to check with my accountant there. But in
Please
any
do.
case, so I might do a couple of transactions, but fundamentally, I'm going to keep the number of Bumble shares that I have until further, next quarter's earnings come out and guide, and we hear from Whitney again, or if Whitney comes on our pod and and we
A
get
little
some additional
foreshadowing.
questions, huh?
I said a little foreshadowing
Yeah,
or
maybe, but
manifesting.
manifesting
Um,
maybe.
yeah, the interesting thing about going back to the accounting and how that could maybe skew the numbers to the upside next earnings that's kind of not great in regards to like we want a better sense of how the company's doing and like are they
Well, those are one-time activities that are like listed out, right? Kind of like the what was it? The goodwill hit that they took $400
right.
million goodwill hit they took last quarter. Now, their EPS was like negative $2 and something, some change because of that goodwill hit. But if you looked into the details, you immediately realize, wait, this goodwill hit has zero impact on the business. Like literally zero impact. It doesn't have a cash impact. It doesn't have a business impact. It has no impact. It's just goodwill, which is like literally this fictional thing that you carry because of, accounting principles, whatever, on your balance sheet. And if those assets are deemed to not be viewed as highly valued, you have to take the hit. They might have more goodwill hits in the future, by the way, because they still have over $1 billion of goodwill on their balance sheet, and that also might have a negative impact. But all of the one-time impacts can easily be like taken out and then evaluated on its sort of core. You can see what the core business is generating in revenues, in profits, how much cash is generating. All of that should be very transparent and visible. But so that's how I evaluate it. Um, you know, Definitely, I was hoping for a little bit more excitement with Q4 numbers. And basically the way that it's shaping out to be, Bumble is like if this company is going to be on this sort of like upward trend from a revenue and profits perspective, that's probably not going to happen until the second half of 2026 and beyond, because the expectation that Whitney set on the call was that their AI product and some of those initiatives are not going to happen until mid 2026. So, take
Yeah.
that. That's like the full picture of Bumble.
Yeah, my dumbed down view is like this. I chalk a lot of this up to like this is a transitionary period of Whitney coming back and cleaning
That's
things
right.
up.
That's right.
And like maybe it's a little messy right now, but long term, I'm very excited about where the company's going to go.
Yeah,
Um, we
that's how I
should
view it as well.